Welcome to Pontification Nation. I'm your host, Ricky Skittle, coming to you live from my mother's basement as always. And boy, do I have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to discuss first the State of the Union, the fake news Lamestream Media coming out against this speech as expected. The Schiff, we're going to talk a little bit about Adam Schiff. And Shifty's hiding something. He delayed Cohen's testimony on Friday till the 28th of February. We'll see if it ever happens. There's something going on there, though. I want to talk a little bit about that. We're going to go into the Virginia debacle. I mean, I guess that's what I'm going to start calling it now, because this is just a true debacle. Talk about the Fairfax accuser. This is this person who has come out talking about the sexual assault allegations, and they are allegations. We're going to talk about how the Democrats refuse to discuss these allegations and accusations. We're going to discuss Northam and, you know, some new information that has come out about him in the yearbook. And we're going to discuss the smirk heard round the world, the smirk seen round the world. And then finally, we're going to talk about Trump on Gaffes. He had a great little moment yesterday with reporters at the White House where he discussed Gaffes, and they were reporting on it as him like talking about Joe Biden. But I think it's important because I'm sure most of my listeners are unaware of how Trump operates and the language he uses and what it looks like. And we're not talking about racist dog whistles here. So without further ado, let's get in and start watching Wolf Blitzer.
Quickly, I want to go to David Chalian. He's got an instant poll. The country is reacting. At least those who watched. What do you got there, David?
At least those who watched. This is our first look at a new instant poll, but it is among speech watchers. So I just want to stress here that for us.
This is CNN telling their watchers, their viewers, you know, all 10 of them, and then everybody who's stuck in the airport, don't worry, this poll looks scary, but it's not true.
State of the Union address, the president's partisans, his supporters, tend to turn out to watch the speech. This is true of a president of either party. So tonight, we saw a heavily Republican-skewed audience turn out to watch the president's speech. But look at this.
No evidence of that whatsoever in any data that I've seen.
A very positive reaction from those who watched the speech tonight. 59% very positive, 17% somewhat positive, 23% negative.
Now, let's think about that. This is a CNN poll, which we know was probably designed not to give good numbers because that's what they do, right? We're not talking about a news organization here. We're talking about a propaganda organization. So they rig their polls to make sure that the message that they want to get out gets out. I am absolutely certain that they were shocked about the results that they got from this poll. You could tell just by the way that they're constantly saying, this isn't about, you know, this isn't reality, yada, yada. This is just the people who watch the speech, which tend to be Trump supporters, and it's the same way for any president, etc. So they're trying to lay the groundwork so that they can frame the narrative and program their listeners to believe what they should believe and not think for themselves. But in reality, everyone is going to talk about the 59% number. None of them are going to include that 17% number. In reality, 76% of the people liked the speech in some way, right? A large majority of them loved it. Now, what does this mean for the mainstream media? It means that they're called out, and that they're realizing now, and they're going to have to start changing their ways because the people are starting to like this president. They want Congress to work with the president to accomplish these goals. Congress wants most of the same things that the president wants. You know, so what they're trying to do, what I believe they're going to try to do, is they're going to try to hitch the wall to some sort of very large tax hike so that they can beat him in the election in 2020. And that is, you know, Trump is not going to raise taxes in order to take care of this stuff. Let's raise GDP, and then the percentage of taxes that we collect will be larger. The amount of taxes we collect will be larger because we have a larger GDP. So let's look at this article from CNN. The speech audience was the most partisan since 2001. This is all that they can do at this point because they know that they have been caught. President Trump's State of the Union address drew a deeply Republican audience, which largely gave the president strong reviews for his address from the House chamber, according to a CNN poll conducted by SSRS immediately following the speech. 6 in 10 speech watchers had a very positive reactions to the president's speech, better than 48% who reacted well last year and 57 very positive mark in 18. So basically what they're trying to do is frame this into a lower amount of people liked it, right? So they're putting these 48 and 57 numbers out there to confuse you. Then they split it all up, 60, 58, 54, because what this does when they split it up, it makes the numbers smaller. All they want to do is make the numbers that they're putting in there smaller and hope that while you're skimming through and not reading every word, that you get the gist of it, that basically half the country liked the speech. And that's just not true. Even among this mostly pro-Trump audience, however, a majority said they did not think the president would succeed in increasing cooperation between Democrats and Republicans. 53% said that Trump would not succeed in that effort, 39% that he would. Republican speech watchers were most likely to think Trump could achieve bipartisan harmony, 62% said so, while most independent, 58%, and Democrat, 91% viewers said it wasn't in the cards. 2/3 considered Trump's policy proposals to be ideologically about right. See how they say 2/3 there instead of putting in 67%? Because they don't want you to know the numbers. 2/3, that doesn't sound like much. 67%, that sounds like a lot. The president improved over last year's marks on whether his policies would move the country in the right direction. Overall, 71% say so versus 62% last year. Now, how are the mainstream media and Democrats going to reconcile these numbers? The people who watch this speech are the American people, right? I don't agree with Obama's policies, but I watched his State of the Unions so that I could understand what his policy prescriptions were, so I could see what he said. So I don't know, and I can't find the numbers, and maybe we'll find them later this week about who watched this speech and what it looks like. But what it looks like to me is that the CNN fake news media poll that was designed to give bad marks to the president gave good marks to the president, and now they're running in fear, trying to hide that from you. Now, here's the end of the article, and this is really why I wanted to show this. Special note of caution. This poll does not and cannot reflect the views of all Americans. It represents only the views of people who watch the speech. This is what they do. They're trying to tell you this is not the way the country thinks. Well, guess what, CNN? It is. And all of us are starting to realize it. You guys are the ones that are in the 20% of people. It's 20% of the country that wants socialism and wants the media and the government to control everything. And that's going to shrink too as we get closer to this election and Trump moves on these people. Again, this is from Vox. Again, it's here. I'll just read the last line. You guys can come read this article at Vox if you want. But again, here we go. Dog whistling. They're talking about how this is awful. It's everything is about white America. Blah, blah, blah. It's not true. I mean, he talked about how good African American employment is. Talk about how good Hispanic unemployment is. Talked about all the things that have been going on that are good for the country. Well, we talked about last night, the Democrats sat on their hands and smirked. But in any case, so when Trump concludes by saying, I'm asking you to choose greatness, the first question to ask is who the you he's speaking to is. Because as much as Trump might wish us to believe it, he's not speaking to everyone. They are trying to divide us and conquer us by racial and other lines that mean nothing to most people. Most people like other people. They judge people based on by their actions and what they say and do, right? Or actually what they do in life, not what they say. So, most people are normal human beings in the world. These people are not, and they want you to believe that if you are a normal human being, that you are alone, and they also want you to believe that if you're a socialist, everyone else agrees with you. It's just not happening. Here's from the Gateway Pundit. Democrats cheer more for themselves than war heroes. Holocaust survivors, child cancer survivors, jobs, and a guy who landed on the moon. I mean, this is serious. This is for real. This is what we talked about last night. I just want to kind of go through this very quickly. We talked about how they cheered for themselves and how that was Trump. Trump wanted that. You know, don't think that Trump didn't intend for them to look idiotic cheering for themselves like that. I did see a meme with all of them with KKK hoods on, which I thought was pretty funny. If you could go out there and find it, it's a good one to see. In any case, so here we go. Record low black unemployment, Republicans standing, Democrats not. Putting drug cartels out of business. I talked about this. Look at that smirk. She's a California senator. You think she's not getting paid by the cartels? Ending infanticide. This is the smirk heard round the world, seen around the world. You know what I just don't understand? Why is it okay for this man to smirk at yanking a baby from the mother's womb as it's about to be born and killing it, but a Covington student isn't allowed to smirk when he has a person standing in his face with a drum singing a song in a different language? There are double standards here. There's two sets of rules in the world. There's rules for these people, and then there's rules for everybody else. Okay? So don't let them let you think that this is the way people are. It's just not. And here we go at the end, a lot of, sitting. So this top picture here, it's probably hard to see, but it says late-term abortion is evil. It must be banned. They're all sitting on their hands, disgusted, right? Because they want to kill babies. African-American employment is the lowest ever, sitting on their hands, disgusted because they want African-American people dependent on the government because that's a large voting bloc. Most women in Congress ever, they're all standing and cheering because they cheer for themselves, because they care about themselves and like themselves. Here's another shot of the smirk. I mean, look at this man. I think he actually likes killing babies. I mean, it looks like he's kind of thinking about it and enjoying the thoughts that he's having while Trump's talking about it. I don't have any proof of that. No evidence. But that's my thought. I'm going to pontificate a little and have some opinion. All right, now we're moving into Adam Schiffty Schiff. The House Intel panel postpones the Cohen testimony. Right? So this is something that was supposed to happen already. It got moved till after the State of the Union. I had some concern that maybe there was going to be a Mueller report and then Cohen was going to testify after the State of the Union because they're going to have to change the narrative quickly. It hasn't happened yet this morning. It's a lot of Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, if you Google Jekyll and Hyde, you'll see it's all about Trump, and whatnot. But in reality, what that speech was what we talked about last night. It wasn't Jekyll and Hyde. It was, let's talk about things that we can agree on, and then let me call you out and let the American people know who you really are, because they don't tell you. That's why this Northam thing is going on. He said it. That's why they leaked the photo on him, because he said what partial birth abortions are in real language that people can understand. He should have stopped at the talking points. He never should have continued on. We covered that in the videos. You can go back and look at them on my page. In any case, there's something going on with this. House Intelligence Committee on Wednesday abruptly postponed the closed-door testimony of President Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, until last month. In the interest of the investigation, Michael Cohen's testimony has been postponed until February 28th, House Intelligence Committee Adam Schiff said in a brief statement Wednesday morning. Cohen has been scheduled to testify before the committee on Friday as part of a newly revived probe into Russian interference in the election. This is an interesting thing to watch, and I will watch it for you, and we will talk about it more next week when we get into, the Muellergate issues. But I wanted to note that because it is interesting, and there's something about it that's not right. Now, we'll talk a little bit about Governor Northam. Northam said he didn't know how the photo got into his yearbook page. I think Bongino the other day said, why don't we talk to somebody, at the yearbook who created the yearbook and find out. Well, CNN did. So here we have Elwood said it's possible anything is possible. So here, this is the doctor that did the yearbook. Dr. Elwood said it's possible someone other than Northam submitted the disturbing photo, but it seems unlikely. Anything is possible. The probability is low unless someone was out to get him and was able to get access to all this stuff, he said. All of this stuff was kept in a locked room, and the only time the room was unlocked was when somebody was in the room working on the yearbook. He also said it's unlikely that staff members mixed up photos during production because, as far as I know, nobody complained that their picture was under the wrong person. So basically, Northam coming out and saying this is disingenuous at best. Here's what happened. Delegate Tran really introduces the bill. That video goes viral. Governor Northam is asked about it the following day on a radio program. He uses his Democrat talking points. He then ad-libs and talks about the reality of what it is that happens. And it's basically babies are born alive and then we kill them, is essentially what he said in not so many words. But that's too much. They can't have that conversation going on the national scene while they're trying to push through all this legislation in other states. So they leaked the photo to get him to resign. Now, that happened, Governor Northam, when they leaked the photo, comes out, apologizes. He says, this is unacceptable, blah, blah, blah. I'd like some time. Looks like he's going to resign. The following day, he comes out and changes his whole entire story. I believe personally the reason he changed his story is because that night when he went home, he talked to people and found out that it was Planned Parenthood or a Planned Parenthood affiliate that leaked this photo. Think about it like an insurance policy. When they give you $3 million, do you think they're going to protect their investment? They have this stuff and they use it when they need it. And at this point, sacrificing Northam was better for them than the alternative of the entire country realizing what they're trying to get pushed through state legislatures. Then Justin Fairfax is accused of sexual assault, and we find out the Washington Post has known about this for years and never wrote about it, but they'll write about Kavanaugh and those allegations from 40 years ago, but they won't write about these allegations. There is two sets of rules here, all right? We need to wake up and look at this and quit sitting around and talking about it in our houses. We need to get out there and say, this is unacceptable. If it is this way for Kavanaugh, it is this way for Fairfax. Now, moving on to the Daily Caller. Democratic senators refused to acknowledge Virginia Lieutenant Governor Fairfax sexual assault accuser. Now, if you remember, everyone said an accuser must be believed. An accuser must be believed. Anyone who makes an accusation is to be believed. Now, this article, we're not going to read through it in the interest of time, but talks about going up to a bunch of different senators. There's a great video about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is pretending to be on the phone, and you can actually see his phone that he's not talking to someone. You can see it's on the contact page. And he's pretending to be on the phone so he doesn't have to talk to this person who's, trying to get an answer from him about what he thinks about this, because all of them are running to microphones when it is a Republican that is accused of sexual assault. They are running from the microphones when it is a Democrat, and none of them know anything about it when it's a Democrat. All right. These are who these people really are. They're politicians through and through. People of your states, of these states in Vermont, people in Vermont, this is disgusting. You need to get it together and primary this person with a Democrat who is just at least a normal human being, right? Let's get people in here who care about real stuff that impacts all of us on a daily basis. That's it. Let's finally get rid of this. Let's wake the country up and get rid of this stuff because there's no place for it. There's no place for it. You can't treat one person one way and another person another way based on anything, including political party. There are two sets of rules. And until we start realizing that there are two sets of rules and we start playing by their games and their tactics, we're still going to be the nice guys finishing last. Now, moving on. We're going to talk about Trump's gaffes. I'm actually going to read this one to you. I think it's an important read. Report: Trump says his gaffes are intentional, but when Biden says something dumb, it's because he's dumb. President Donald Trump reportedly let loose on a host of political enemies before mounting the congressional stage to deliver a State of the Union address that satisfied most viewers, according to early surveys. While Trump sometimes appeared to reach out to certain political opponents in his Tuesday night speech that initial polls indicate was hugely popular, in a private lunch earlier in the day with a select group of reporters, Trump was less forgiving. He savaged some of his adversaries, according to sources quoted by the New York Times. The president reportedly expressed his enthusiasm for running for president again and apparently wants to enter the political ring with former Vice President Joe Biden. Because, according to Trump, Biden was never very smart. He was a terrible student. His gaffes are unbelievable. When I say something that you might think is a gaffe, it's on purpose. It's not a gaffe. When Biden says something dumb, it's because he's dumb. Former U.S. This is just a picture of him. Trump reportedly also said that he believes the Democrat Party is moving so far to the left with projects like the Green New Deal and Medicare for All that is ensuring a Republican victory. The White House declined to comment on the president's alleged remarks. With Biden in mind, he would also allegedly be anxious to square off with Democrat Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, who recently apologized to the Cherokee Nation for her pretense of being Native American. Potential 2020 Democrat. Trump also reportedly took time to comment on the escalating woes of Virginia Democrat Governor Ralph Northam, who first advocated for a late-term abortion bill and then was caught up appearing to an old medical school yearbook in blackface. Northam tried to tell reporters that he tried blackface routine, but was innocently imitating 1980s icon Michael Jackson at the time. Now, did you see that news conference, Mr. Trump asked? Could you believe it? He choked like a dog. Now, this is important. Obamacare, Covfefe, hamburgers, all of that stuff is intentional. Trump uses code to talk to people. It's what he does. And when he makes those types of mistakes, it accomplishes several things for him. It makes his enemies think he's stupid. It gets the information out to his supporters that, of things that are going on. And we'll do some Trump Twitter decodes so that you guys fully grasp what I'm talking about. But trust me, Trump doesn't spell hamburgers on accident. He does it on purpose, and it has to do with coding and getting messages out. A lot of what have to do with what's going on with Muellergate and other things that are going on in the news. All right, so that's the show for today. I want to just, if you haven't yet, please come over to the landing page and hit the red subscribe button. There's a bell right next to it. If you could click that for notifications, that way you'll get notified up here in your notifications bar. You also get emails whenever we post new content. You can also follow me on Twitter, which is @Ricky_Skittle. And we post some content there as well. And obviously, kind of do some Twitter trolling. Thank you so much for subscribing and listening. We really appreciate it. And, we'll talk to you soon. I'll have more out probably tomorrow or maybe later today, depending on how things go. But we're definitely continuing to work on the Mueller expose, which will be out on Monday. For Pontification Nation, this is Ricky Skittle, out.